and some other sporting events that are going on this week, and some court cases through eligibility for basketball and football players. So we'll jump right into a little college hoops with Kevin.
So a big weekend in college hoops and some games that are going to have at least an NCAA seeding effect that were played this weekend. And I'm going to kind of go over some winners and losers, maybe not losers, but some definite winners out of this weekend. And one of them also played last night. So I'll start with some games that were rivalry type games, an impactful game. Let me start with Friday night, Michigan State, Illinois. Actually, that game was Saturday evening. You had Illinois ranked number 5, playing for the hopes to get a 1 seed at Michigan State. Good team. Michigan State lost previously to Michigan, and so it was a big game for them. They're still fighting for a 2 seed, and Michigan State won the game in overtime. A really hard fought game. Both teams could have won. Puts Michigan State back in the hunt for the 2 seed. Illinois still a solid 2 seed right now, but again, it kind of narrowed the gap there between those two teams and other teams fighting for that 2 line. Next game I want to roll to is Alabama Auburn. Alabama went on the road. Auburn's a very, very tough place to play. Auburn have been playing better. Alabama's been up and down this year, and they needed a win. They've struggled on the road, lost to Florida by 23 last last weekend. And first half, Auburn led, ended up going into halftime with a 4 point lead. Probably should have been up 6-8, in that game. And the fact that it was so close, Alabama came out in the second half, played really well the first 10 minutes, got up, and Auburn just couldn't get the lead back. Alabama controlled the game after that, played really well. I think that's a big win for Alabama because they had kind of slipped out of the top 25. So this gets them back in there. And again, I don't think anybody is thinking Alabama's going to be a 2 seed or above, but it gets them back into where they can compete for a 4 seed, a 3 seed, and that piece. And again, when you get in the tournament, having a 2 or 3 seed really matters. Is to for who you're going to match up with in that Sweet 16 round, and that piece. So, big win there for Alabama, and also puts Auburn in a situation. They had won some games and in along that 5 seed territory. In this game, that loss puts them in where they need to go back and win some games, where they're going to be in that 7, 8 seed range for that aspect of the tournament. Um, Florida, Texas A&M might have been the biggest surprise to me. Not that Florida won the game, but in the manner they won the game. They go to Texas A&M. Both teams tied for the lead in the SEC, and Florida dominated the game, led by 20 most of the game, and was just totally dominant in this game. Florida's came on. We've talked about it. They've played really well over the last 4 to 5 weeks since Boogie Flan was put in the starting lineup. And I would say this is probably their best game of the year. Looking back at this game, I really thought A&M at home would win, but as I watched some of the game, the way it played out, they just and we talked about it. Texas A&M just doesn't have the talent that Florida has. Florida's length, their big guys, their length on their team, the way that they were able to guard, really impacted Texas A&M and M and their ability to shoot the three. They didn't shoot it at all last night. At one point, they were like 1 out of 12 from three, and so on Saturday night. So big win by Florida gives them the outright lead in the SEC again, and they continue to climb. They lost some games early, but they're really climbing. They're back into that inside the top 20 now, and I think they're a team that could get to that 3 seed. I don't know that they can get to a 2 unless they just continue to win out. But they're definitely a team that's battling for that 3 seed slot. Louisville also won this weekend and then came back and beat NC State resoundingly last night. NC State was 18-6. Louisville beat them at home by 20 plus. They've won like 8 out of 9. Louisville's another team that's really picking up steam and playing well. Next team I want to talk about is the team that I think is playing they're the hottest team right now. I still would say Arizona's the best team in college basketball, but I think Kansas is the hottest team right now. And Kansas won Saturday. They sleptwalk a little bit in the first half, but played well in the second half and beat Utah by 12. But then last night, they took an Arizona team. They played them at home, and Lawrence and Allen Fieldhouse and all that arena is as tough as it gets. It's a great atmosphere, and the game last night was a great atmosphere. And Kansas beat Arizona by 4, 82-78. I saw a stat. Bill Self in playing teams ranked above him in Lawrence is 15-0 with that win last night. That's an incredible stat. And it also speaks to how big that home court advantage is. But he's won, he won at Texas Tech a week or so ago. And I'm counting here, there's 3. They did beat BYU 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and that win over Iowa State. He's won 8 in a row. They've not lost since January 10th. And wins over Iowa State, not just a win, but beat them by 20. Iowa State's a top 10 team. Beat Baylor by 18. Beat BYU last weekend by 8. Beat Tech on the road. Texas Tech is borderline top 10, anywhere from 10 to 15. Went on the road and beat them. Beat Utah at home. Beat Arizona. I think they're the hottest team right now. Now, again, do I think they're the best? No. And they've climbed back into the top 10, and I see them fighting to be in a solid 2 spot. They've got a talented team. And when Patterson was hurt, they lost some games, and it kind of created a little dysfunction, but they're playing really well. I still think Arizona's the best team. You look at how Arizona's won throughout the year. They haven't had a lot of close games. They've had a few. Beat BYU at home by 3, had a couple 7-point wins. One was Arizona State. But most of their games, they've won by double digits. And look, there's no shame in going to Allen Fieldhouse there in Lawrence and only losing by 4 points. So I still think they're the best team. I think Michigan's second. Another game I got to throw in here too. Great game Friday night in a great arena with a lot of tradition. St. John's beat UConn and led that game the whole way. Really close game. But best game that St. John's has played all year. UConn was a top 4 team at the time. I think they're ranked 9th now. But a big win for St. John's, and again, to me, a win that they needed to get their seed hopes up in the NCAA tournament. To me, they were a team that was pretty much around 25 to 35, and this win can kind of elevate them from that if they can layer some wins on with it. So I think, again, going back to the way that I look at college basketball, we had a lot of big games, a lot of competitive games, and it was some games that, if you won, you really impacted your standing as we get into February. Looking into this month, you're not far away from the conference tournaments. March Madness is right around the corner. So this is the time of year that teams, if they can put, wins together, win in a row, you can jump your seed. And again, that's really important as you get into the NCAA tournament. You guys' thoughts. D-Mac, what's your thoughts on the basketball scene in this weekend?
Yeah, that Florida Texas A&M game was the one that sticks out the most to me. The way Florida was able to win that game in College Station. So, Florida has really set themselves apart atop the SEC right now. I do think Buckyball is going to bounce back though, and probably finish, top 3 for sure this year in the SEC. So shout out to Bucky McMillan for an immediate turnaround at Texas A&M so far. What are your thoughts, Sweets?
Yeah, my of those games, the one that stands out to me is Michigan State and Jeremy Fears. He had 26 points and 15 assists in that game against the Illini. But with that, he's becomes the first Michigan State point guard. Now these guys have had Magic Johnson, Mateen Cleaves. These guys have had some unbelievable point guards throughout the years. He's the first to throw up two games in the same season with 15 plus dimes. So, hell of a player. He's going to be an All American, and Michigan State's going to go as far as he can carry him, and he can carry him a long way. I'm really interested to see how they continue to play throughout the year, but they're hitting at the right time. So watch out for Sparty. Watch out for Sparty. Where are we going next?
He was really good. He was really good the other night. Look, I almost didn't mention maybe the biggest game the other night. Certainly as far as rivalries, the biggest college basketball rivalry is certainly Carolina and Duke. And Duke led that game in the first half and probably led about 70% of the game. And Carolina just fought, came back in the second half, hit 2 threes in the last minute, and won that game on their home court. Huge win for them. Again, a team that probably was along about the five seed line, and with a win over Duke, could get them back in the hunt for a 3 seed, solidify that, or a 4. So, and look, in that rivalry, if you win, it's a big win. So certainly Carolina lost both times to Duke last year. So it was a big thing for them. Some of the players interviewed after the game even referenced that not only did they lose to Duke last year, but they lost that game pretty handily. In the first half, Duke was up 12 and had total control of the game. And Carolina, like I say, they just really hung in and fought. Duke actually led at half by 12. And Carolina came back and outscored them by 15 in the second half, holding them to 27 points. So it was really a hard-fought win, like I said, and that might have been the most impressive win Saturday night in how they had to do it coming back. Any thoughts on that game?
Yeah, I mean, listen, Duke had a chance to win. Duke had their best player had the ball at the front of the rim with the game on the line and missed the shot. So I mean, as a coach, Shire, that's all he could ask for. I mean, I wouldn't have drawn it up any other way. You just missed the shot, and that's going to happen sometimes. Hats off to North Carolina, big win. They broke that streak that we had talked about, losing streak against Duke. So huge win for them. We'll see what it propels them to. We'll see if they catch fire now and something comes of it, or if they just go back to being meh. D-Mac?
Yeah, with Duke, I'd much rather my star player miss a game-winning shot in February than in March and April. So,
Sure.
At the end of the day, this loss doesn't affect Duke that much. Obviously, they want to beat UNC anytime they play, but I think it's going to be a good learning experience for a star-studded freshman, and that's going to bode well for when they're in the tournament in a few weeks.
It'll be here before you know it.
So that brings us to the Super Bowl, and had some former LSU guys playing. One and Anthony Bradford, who got a Super Bowl ring, and a few guys on the Patriots. Sweets, want to get us started on the Super Bowl?
Yes, sir. Marietta's Ricky White was on the roster for Seattle too. So congrats, Ricky. Great game. Listen, Seattle was the best team all year, and they didn't disappoint in the Super Bowl. They matched up with New England every way, shape. New England had no answers. New England had no answers, and Seattle had all the answers. Everything that New England did on offense, Seattle looked like they knew what was coming. And, when the way they talked after the game, they did know what was coming because, they said McDonald said that he lets his players, they call a defensive set, but then he'll let his players adjust to what they see. So if they see something on film where, maybe the left tackle's, opening up that left foot a little bit, that tells that end that, that he's probably going to, kick step back and it's going to be a pass. So he might think about cutting inside or whatever. In any case, he gives his players carte blanche to do that, and it worked for them. And, they beat the hell out of New England. It was a heck of a game. Kev?
Yeah, they, going into the game, I felt like Seattle, the one advantage they had was the running game. Over the years, Seattle's been pretty physical at the offensive line, and Walker's been a good running back. Now, whether the game started in the first quarter, Darnold, took him down the field throwing the ball and he kicked a field goal. Once they settled in towards the end of the first quarter and started running Walker and D-Mac, you mentioned Bradford, and he had some big blocks in this game that opened some holes, and Walker, ripped off some big runs through it. And I think that was obviously Seattle's defense was great. No, I mean they were the best position group on the field. But I do think the offensive line and the running game of Seattle was the difference. And then I guess I'd also say, look, Darnold came out throwing the ball really well and very confident. The first couple of drives, he threw some balls in some tight windows and helped him get on the field and get a field goal. And I just mentioned that because what a turnaround for a guy that 3-4 years ago when he was in Carolina, most people thought he was done. And he took a chance, signed with Minnesota, had a great year there. Why Minnesota didn't keep him? They got to be that GM did get fired, so we understand
He
that.
lost his job over that one.
Yeah, that and some others. But a guy that might have been in a bad situation there in Carolina. At this point, I think you could justifiably say that because the last 2 years he's been amongst the best quarterbacks in the NFL. So you got to give Darnold credit. And then McDonald as a coach, man, you really got to give him credit. Kubiak on the offense. Hats off to all of them. And even though they didn't play well and they were really overmatched with the Patriots, I would also say hats off to Vrabel and their coaching staff, especially on the defensive side of the ball. They really get after you on defense. Seattle's the best team, and again, give them credit. But like I said, give Vrabel. And one last thing I say about New England, if you just watch the game, their secondary was fun to watch because, man, their secondary was right there. Either they broke a pass up or they were right there in coverage. So this New England's far from done. Drake May had a really, really, really tough game, but he had a good year. So I think New England will be back in the game. I hope they don't win it. I want my Steelers to get 7 before anybody else. So I'll say that. But New England will be back, but Seattle, man, good team. D-Mac, your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I know I've been a Steelers fan a long time, and I'm jumping ship now for the foreseeable future. I think my Cleveland Browns are going to have something to say about that moving forward. But it was a good football game to watch. The Lions go at it. Watch the cornerback, defensive back rooms. It was not my favorite Super Bowl by any means that I've seen in my lifetime. It's probably on the lower end there.
One of the most boring.
Yeah, it was. First half was definitely boring. A ton of plays, not a lot of yards. But shout out to the Seahawks for getting it done. LSU players add another ring to the Super Bowl collection, so that's always fun. Both of these teams are, have a lot of young guys on them. So, they're going to be two teams that really, really carry on for the next couple seasons as well.
We'll see if their GMs are able to keep them together with the salary cap. That's always the hell, just like in college football, except for these pros, they don't. Good thing about the pros for these GMs is they can't just up and leave anytime they want to. Those contracts actually mean something in the NFL, so it doesn't work like that in the NCAA. Those guys wish they could go back now.
So while we're talking contracts, I don't know if you saw Sweet's Gunnar Stockton, which he was never going to transfer, didn't even cross his mind, but his agent announced that they inked a new deal for him. And it was quoted that Gunnar Stockton, didn't care how much he got. He said, use the funds to build the team, and then we'll figure out what we come to after that. So class act move by Gunnar Stockton. You don't hear about that much in today's football.
That would be the first college kid that I've heard say, you know what, I'm good. Let's get me some guys to block for me or something. I good for Gunnar Stockton. Like I said, I can't think of another one that said anything like that yet. But I do know a few that have left because they didn't get enough. So everybody,
Look, he certainly stepped up in that Texas game the first time that he came off the bench, and you could tell he had the players on the team's respect. And even though they won the SEC, had a good year, so let's say that. But even though they lost in the college playoffs, you could absolutely tell that Stockton's the leader of that team, and it's actions and things like that that make it clear and really understandable why he is.
yeah, no, it's I mean, leaders don't always have to be the best player, and in a lot of cases, it's usually not the best player. It's somebody who's gritty and one of those guys that just is always there. It's like on the basketball team, it's that guy who gives it 110% on defense every time down the court, stuff like that. So good for Stockton. Really good for Georgia. We've been reading about Georgia fans wondering why their NIL doesn't seem to be on par with some other schools' NIL at present. For the Georgia fans, and I know we have some to watch, so I would tell you that your high school recruiting and the way Kirby runs things and the way that he's able to keep a lot of those kids in your program makes up for you not having to go get all the all the transfers that some of the other schools do. Like LSU this year, we really didn't have much of a choice. We had so many leaving, we had to bring them in. At Georgia, you didn't lose that many, and of the ones you did lose, there weren't a lot of people. There weren't a lot of guys that you were just like, damn, we really need to keep that guy. So, that's you guys do okay with even with all the NIL whining. DMAC.
Yeah. I mean, anything else, Kevin? I know you want to talk about a few court cases that are in the queue across the Southeast. Before we jump into that, a little bit of golf news. Tiger Woods' son committed to Florida State. I think today or yesterday, within the last 24 hours. So, Charlie is going to be playing golf for the Seminoles. If you guys are on any of the message board sites that are listening, yeah, I did not think Florida could have a meltdown over a college golfer not choosing their school, but they are right now. So,
Oh,
Oh, that tells you how far their football program has fallen. That they are focused on their golf program to carry them for news. Not knocking golf; it's a great sport, but when you can't talk about your football team, I guess that's what you got to do. Talk about golf, right?
yeah,
Losing Charlie Wood.
one other note on the Florida Gators. They had 0 guys play in the Super Bowl. However, there was a former John Summerall guy who played. So, their head coach at least had 1 guy in the Super Bowl.
there you go. So
Again, it tells you
he's
where that
looking up.
program has fallen.
Yeah.
So, do we want to talk about the eligibility, NCAA, and all that mess? That maybe there's a trend in a positive way.
Yeah, I'm good with that. I'm going to stay off my soapbox tonight and talk,
Fuck that.
constructively.
I'll off as you please. That's what just you jump in when you want to. Jump in.
So Charles Bediako was ruled ineligible yesterday. He had a temporary restraining order. It did go to court yesterday in the state of Alabama. A little background about it: the judge that granted the restraining order was also an alumni of Alabama that had donated a lot of money over the years to Alabama. The NCAA did actually fight in this one. They petitioned for him to be removed as a judge, rightfully so, and that happened. And then it goes to court, and Bediako lost, and now he's ineligible. He should have never been eligible. I mean, talk about Pandora's box. So let's look at the scenario. So he played a couple years, and he declared to go pro, and that has always been the rules. Once you once you say that you're leaving college to go pro, you're done in college. He was still within his 5-year window of when he started college, and he tried to go back because some universities are paying more NIL money than G League money. Even though he got drafted, I think it was in the second round, Pistons, Spurs, one of those teams, and played in the G League for those teams. Um, he was playing in the G League. You don't make as much money there, so he wanted to go back to college because now with NIL, I can make all this money. Look, decisions have consequences, right? We all make them in life. We're all adults. He's an adult, and he made his decision. He wanted to go for the big money in the NBA. So more power to him. He can still play in the NBA. Greg Sankey actually came out this weekend and publicly said that the courts need to find in favor of the NCAA. It's the right thing. Once you give up your eligibility, you shouldn't be given a second chance to get that back. In this case, for really no reason. Again, it was a decision he made. The decision he made was legal. There was nothing about that. Can you only imagine what Pandora's box that would have opened? And it's been talked about. Message boards, media has talked about it. If you're a guy if you're a sophomore or junior, you go pro, you don't like your situation, you go back. I mean, just think of how many more college students, if this would have happened over the next year, might have decided to go pro. Look, I think I can go. I might be a 4th round draft pick. I might be a 6th round draft pick. I'll just go take my chances. And guess what? If I don't like it, I'll go back and I'll find a college, and they'll pay me NIL money. We didn't need to go there. So thank goodness the courts made the right decisions and ruled Bediako ineligible. I think it was not going to happen because it was 4 games and only 2 games that Alabama won. They did beat A&M last week at home by 3, and again, that all we talked about, they won that. And give them credit for that. And I think they'd have probably won those games whether Bediako played or not. But, really in reality, I think Alabama deserves to forfeit those games because I think the idea that they had to even try it was just, I don't know, unscrupulous, whatever you want to call it. You got to be at some point. The leaders in these sports got to be above making stupid decisions, and to even attempt to get Bediako eligible to play was a stupid, bad decision. And I'm thankful that this time the courts stepped in and the NCAA fought it well, and the right decision came out of that.
It should have never came to that, though. The SEC, as soon as he came back, the SEC should have said, no, you are not eligible. This is the rule. That's it. If Bama would have whined about it, they probably would have, then they could have taken it to the NCAA, and then the NCAA, in lockstep with the SEC, could have said, this is a hard and fast rule that we've had forever. You've given it up. This is, it's a no-go. It's not even a question. You are ineligible. How he got to play, how it even got this far is just ridiculous beyond compare. And I blame the SEC for not stepping up first and foremost, and then for the NCAA, after watching the SEC, piss down their leg in the decision to let him play to begin with, they didn't step in and knock it out sooner. It was, I just as you said, the lack of leadership is ridiculous. And it's, this is basketball. It's far worse. Same leaders, but it's far worse for football. The rule breaking stuff. It's insane. DMAC.
Yeah, no, I think Alabama should have to forfeit the A&M and the Auburn win. I know the War Eagle fans are right behind me on that one. Yeah, I mean, he's ruled ineligible. Yeah. Shouldn't have been able to play to begin with. So, needs to get out of here.
Hey, in high school, you'd forfeit the season.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would.
In Georgia, you'd forfeit the season. So, how this dude's playing in games and he's not, he's not at minimum forfeited the games that he played in and won. It's embarrassing for the SEC that they're doing nothing about it, and and going up the ladder, the NCAA as well.
And then we go from there to another really big case that's happening tomorrow in the big city of Pittsboro, Mississippi, a little bitty community in front of a judge, Robert Whitwell, in Calhoun County, Mississippi. Trinidad Chambliss is suing for an injunction for the right for another year to play at Ole Miss. A couple of things about this. Chambliss has started rising up some draft boards. Most people see him now at worst as a second-round pick, and the Ole Miss offer is for $4 million for next year. While that might grant him more money in 1 year, if he goes to the pros, even at a second-round pick, he's going to get 3 years guaranteed and more money. So I'm not sure I really understand the why there. But a couple of things that has been talked about recently in this case. So Chambliss is trying to get a medical red shirt based on tonsillitis, and that is exactly it, tonsillitis. And for his 2022 year, where he played in some games, and recently it's kind of came out that he was already granted a medical hardship. He's played 5 years, and it's been recently kind of discussed that in Division II he was granted that medical hardship, and even in games that he played back when he was in Division II, it was talked about on television, even him in an interview a couple of years ago, referencing that yes, he had a medical hardship. So that's one of the things that the NCAA is going to stand on in their fight, is that he's already been granted a medical hardship for that year. So going back and granting him a second one, we've already been granted that one, so you can't get 2 years for one. So that's one aspect of it. Another aspect of this, on Chambliss's side, he's got a doctor that's got this far. The reason the injunction was granted to get the court case heard is there's a doctor that is saying that this tonsillitis he had was like a year-long episode of tonsillitis. Yes, if you read about it, it's a 4 to 10 day sickness for most. And who knows, maybe, but again, it's a head scratcher because I've never heard of a year-long episode of constant tonsillitis. I guess you lose it, it comes back. I don't understand it. But again, the NCAA has said they're raising some questions about this doctor and the legitimacy of his claim and how do you claim this. So that's two interesting things that I think are going to come out in this case tomorrow that I'm really curious about. So again, Chambliss only played in 2 games in 2022, so he was entitled to that. But if he did get a medical red shirt in 2022, how do you get a second one? So I'm not saying for sure that's the argument, but that is the underlying message right now, that one of the things that the NCAA is going to offer. Any thoughts that you guys have on this?
Go ahead, DMAC. I was looking something up in regards to this.
Sorry, I was on mute. Same thing. I was looking up this doctor to see if he's an Ole Miss grad or not. I've not gotten anything back on that just yet. But yeah, that's I mean, man, sounds like the Rebels are trying to pull out every stop. Year-long tonsillitis. I had heard that, when in December when they were talking about this, that he was in so much pain he can't put a helmet on, this and that. Tonsillitis seems like, a little bit of a stretch from the pain that they described, but who knows? I guess it affects everybody differently. What do you think, Sweets?
I thought that they had said that he got tonsillitis like in November of that year that he's asked for the red shirt for. So he got it like at the end of the year. And in Ferris State's case, it was probably like within the last game or two because those D2 schools finish up earlier than the D1s. So I was just trying to I was looking for a date. I mean, because if it was in November of 23 or 24, then no, I mean, it's really after the season that you only played 2 games in anyway. So it just, do I think he's going to win the case? Yes, I think he'll win the case because the NCAA, you know, has no balls. But I do, I don't think he should. I think it's bogus. So I don't know. Kev?
And while I agree with you, Sweets, over the past 3 or 4 years, they have been absolutely inept and showed no willingness to fight. Again, the NCAA winning this Bediako case and really going after that in a hard way, and some of the things that I hope what we're hearing about this case is true, and I hope they fight. If Chambliss wins the case, I just hope the NCAA fights like hell with it. Nothing against him, and I have no qualms about if Ole Miss is going to give you 4 or 5 million, and you think you can get that there and then go to the NFL, fine, more power to you. At the end of the day, though, trying to get 6 years, a 6 year of eligibility, it's just got to stop somewhere. We've seen it too long. The NCAA needs to show fight, and these kids got to understand, just like any other college graduate, at some point you got to go into the real world and live a life. And I don't think there's anything wrong with Chambliss taking his game to the NFL. I think he's talented enough to play in the NFL. I think he'd be a good NFL quarterback. Take your game, go to the next level, grow up, get out of college. You've done your time. You've got your education. What more is college for? It's not for you to just hang out and continue to get paid to play football for 6-7 years. And go ahead.
It's great at this point. I mean, if you would have asked him on February 9th, 10th of 2025, hey, listen, next year at this time, you're going to have 2 options. You're either going to be able to go back to Ole Miss and play football for another year, or B, you can go to the NFL draft where you're probably going to be one of the first 40 players picked, first round, high second round. What do you want to do? What do you think he would have said?
Well, yeah, I think he would want to go. Yeah. Probably want to go to the NFL. He should. Let me tell this one.
Go do it.
Yeah. So you raise a good scenario. Let me also give you this scenario, which is part of the NCAA argument. So let's say if it's 2022 and you're a sophomore, Trinidad Chambliss, and you're in line to start because the guy in front of you just graduated and you're a good player. But this guy wants to come back for his 6th year. Are you going to be, is that going to, what's that going to do for you? What's that, you're the guy that's in college. Everybody thinks, I'm going to go compete. I'm going to learn. This guy in front of me is going to graduate. He's going to go on. Are you going to accept that? Are you going to transfer? And if it's in 2022, if the guy in front of you wants that extra year, how are you going to feel about that? Are you going to feel that guy should get an extra year just because he's going to get paid for it? I don't think Chambliss would have felt like that. I think he would have been probably against it if he's the sophomore in this case. If he's Deuce Knight and he has a chance to start, if Chambliss goes, and that's the point. You should not get 6-7 years to play just because you're going to get paid. College is to get an education and to advance yourself into life and become an adult. He's done his time. He's got his degree. He's got a chance to play in the NFL. Go be an adult. That's all.
Yep. It's ridiculous, and they've got to do something about it. We talked about the 5 to play 4, 5 to play 5, or whatever, and while I like that hard and fast, I don't think that will ever happen just because of the BYUs and the mission thing. So I don't think they would, and then if you do it for BYU, then you have to do it for everybody else. So, but they've got to come to something, because these guys that are 25 years old playing against my 18-year-old son, that's just ridiculous. It's time to go, join the real world. And especially, for somebody like Chambliss, who it's not like he's going to be, bagging groceries at Hy-Vee like Kurt Warner. This kid's going to be on an NFL roster, making millions of dollars and having an opportunity to be a starting NFL quarterback, which, like we said, last year at this time, he, that was a pipe dream, and now it's a reality. So, go live the reality. Just,
While we're talking about this, what's the latest on TJ Finley?
yeah, who's he playing for now? I was
Incarnate Word.
Yeah, he went
Yes.
back.
He got a
wasn't he there
7
before?
God knows how. Go ahead.
Wasn't he there? Was he there before?
No, he was at
Yes.
Texas State, I thought.
Was it? Okay.
So he went, LSU, Auburn, Texas State,
Western Kentucky, Georgia State, Incarnate Word.
and don't forget a small stint at Tulane.
Yeah, and 14 minutes at Tulane. So yeah,
Right.
I mean, I would assume that he's a guy who's waiting on a waiver.
well,
Surely he's just
no,
doesn't have a
he's
free
not
pass.
waiting on a way. He's clear, because I mean it's some. But like I said, the thing about it was he just came out and said, "Hey, this is the best way to support my kids right now. I can go make, he's probably getting 100,000 to be the quarterback at Incarnate Word. Okay, what else is he going to do to make 100,000 right out of college? With his degree in, anybody have an idea what his degree is in?
I think he's getting his master's in.
Master. Shit, he should be a
No.
doctor by now.
Is that
He should be.
biochemistry?
No. I mean,
What
he isn't
is
going to med school. Biochemistry is what DMAC said. DMAC, are you pulling that out of left field?
Oh yeah, he's probably interdisciplinary studies to
there you go.
coach or something. But yeah, I mean, there's nobody leaving college outside of going to pro athletes that lands into a 6-figure job. Sweet, your daughter's a really sharp girl who just graduated college. I don't think she landed a 6-figure job right out of college.
No,
Nobody does.
pushing her towards it.
Yeah. I mean, I think, the goal is to get there, but, for TJ Finley, I mean, I'm with him. Hey, stay in as long as you can.
Yeah, I was just trying to find, and he was at Georgia State too. I forgot to,
Again, it's nonsense. You shouldn't be given 7 years. Again, there are people in college that deserve that right to play.
Yeah.
You should not be able to hang around and get 3-4 different degrees, play 7 years in college. That's just nonsense. It's got to stop.
Okay, guys, a little bit of bad news on the Finley front. He is not graduated yet.
There you go. The reality.
He is maybe still in a business management degree path, but he probably loses quite a few credits every time he transfers.
That's what I was going to say. Blame it on that. Blame it on the fact that even you would think even in 7 years, even though the credits you lose, I mean, you got to have about 120 credits to graduate, right?
Yeah.
And so in 6 years, and they go to summer school too, but in 6 years, if you just take first semester, second semester, 30 hours of class over a year. So in 6 years times 30, you could potentially have 180 hours. If you took a few summer classes in there, I guess legitimately he probably lost 60 hours over all that transfer and, lose. I mean, wow. Amazing.
Oh
I
my!
say that.
I
The
think
quarterback from Oklahoma State that transferred to Ole Miss and played 6 years, he never graduated either. I can't think of his
I
name.
and listen, I don't know TJ. DMAC, you've probably had some, but everybody who, a lot of people who talk about it say he's a good kid. I hope it works out for him. I just don't think that he is good enough to be a professional quarterback. There's nothing wrong with that. Not many people are. But wherever he does, hopefully, maybe he can stay in coaching. He'll have the opportunity to do that, I'm sure. Coming back to Louisiana. So hope it all works out for him anyway.
yeah,
What's
I,
that?
What
I
happened
think
to this?
I think college coaching is in his future. So, he's been a part of 6 coaching staffs, during his playing time. So, I'm sure that he has learned a lot in each stop. So, I hope he can make a run at the college coaching side of things.
What happened to academic eligibility? And where I'm going with that, how can you not graduate in 6 years and maintain your academic eligibility? Because it wasn't just grades. You had to progress towards a degree. And
But I
like
think
year 2,
there's there's a little gray area with changing your major.
oh Lord, come on. But again, after your sophomore year, you had to be at like 30%. After your junior year, you had to be at like 60, 70% of your degree, which means your 5th year, you ought to be really close. And by the end of your 6th year, you should graduate if there's a progression to your academic eligibility, even if you change majors. I mean, the first 60 hours that are elective type courses go to a lot of degrees unless you're going to medical school, or something. So I still think within 6 years, if you're progressing, again, they've just thrown, I guess where I'm going here with this, they've just thrown it all out the window. There's nothing, you know. Um,
The
golly.
craziest was Stetson Bennett being 7, 8 years without a degree. I was like, I mean, that's you have to try not to graduate, I think, to be eligible to play college football for that long and not have graduated and like you said, DMAC, yeah, you can change your degree. I mean, shit, 8, 9 years, he could have changed it 4 times and still
Yeah.
it's wild.
You could. And and take into consideration all the advantages academically that these guys have
Oh yeah. Yeah.
once they play. I mean, they have, tutors at their, and look, this isn't everybody, okay? I'm going to be really clear. This isn't college athletics back in the 1980s. Most of these athletes get their degree and they do really well in school. And so give them credit for that. They've changed the stigma there. Um, but it just makes no sense. You can be 6 years and you've not graduated. Oh, Lord. What a mess.
Wow. I think that's a good stopping point tonight. I know I've got some studying to do so that I can graduate.
How many years?
No, I graduated in 5. I took a bonus year.
You had a red shirt year. Nothing wrong with that.
Okay.
I loved college so much, I decided to spend 5 years there.
There you go.
And there's nothing wrong with that. And look, if you do change your major, 5 years is probably an acceptable thing. Just don't know that it takes 7 or 8.
Yeah, that's just fucking insane. But I look at like
Let's just all
Bailey, okay. So Harrison, I think he got his master's. But I mean, he's he was eligible last year, and I mean, I hope he's not trying to play this year, but I mean, if he did want to go somewhere, he'd probably have a case.
let's just all remember that we're getting kind of remember the Trinidad Chambliss case tomorrow. Look for it tomorrow afternoon. It's just going to be curious. So let's see if the NCAA can go 2 for 2 in cases that they should win. That's how I will wrap up what I got to say with it.
Yeah, ditto that. So it's a wrap for Southern Sports Gumbo tonight, and we'll see you guys soon. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe, and check out YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts for our SEC baseball previews dropping this week.